If you have a drawer of old pennies sitting in a kitchen cabinet, a coffee can tucked into a garage drawer, or a forgotten coin album collecting dust in a closet, what I'm about to share may change the way you look at every single copper coin you've ever touched, because hidden among the billions of ordinary 1-cent pieces struck in America, there exists a version of the 1973 Lincoln cent that has stunned seasoned collectors, shaken auction rooms, and ignited the kind of frenzy that turns pocket change into life-altering money. We're talking about a coin that, under the right conditions, has been whispered about in connection with values approaching $3 million. $3 million a broken bar for a penny. It sounds impossible, it sounds exaggerated, it sounds like one of those stories you hear at a flea market from a man who swears his uncle once found a treasure in a shoebox. But in the world of rare coin collecting, impossibility is often the first sign that you should look closer. The 1973 Lincoln cent was struck at the Denver Mint during the time when billions of pennies were produced for circulation. America was in the early 1970s, inflation was climbing, and copper coins were still made primarily of 95% copper. Most of those coins are worth exactly 1 cent today. Maybe 2 or 3 cents for their copper content. Nothing glamorous, nothing life-changing, and yet, within that sea of ordinary cents, a microscopic fraction stands apart. To understand why, we need to step back and appreciate the legacy of the Lincoln cent itself. Introduced in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln, the coin has long been a symbol of American resilience. Designed by Victor David Brenner, Lincoln's portrait has endured for over a century. Generations have held it, spent it, saved it. But collectors know something the average spender does not. Sometimes, the smallest variations in minting can create astronomical differences in value. In 1973, the Denver Mint struck over 3.5 billion Lincoln cents. Think about that number. Billions. That's why most people assume there is no way a 1973 penny could ever be rare, and in general, they're right. Most are common, but the coin that commands headlines and eye-watering valuations is not the ordinary 1973 It is the extraordinary error specimen. Imagine a penny struck on the wrong plankett. Imagine a coin that escaped quality control with a dramatic minting error, or perhaps a double die, perhaps struck on a bronze-clad steel experimental plankett, perhaps featuring an off-metal composition that was never meant to exist in circulation. These are not myths. The U.S. Mint has a long, documented history of transitional errors and wrong plankett strikes slipping into the public. Now here's where the story becomes electric. In the early 1970s, the Mint was experimenting with different metallic compositions as copper prices rose. Officially, the composition change didn't happen until 1982, but internal testing and plankett transitions can lead to the accidental striking of coins on leftover or experimental blanks. When that happens, the result can be a one-of-a-kind anomaly, and in the rare coin market, one-of-a-kind is a phrase that moves markets. There are documented cases of Lincoln cents from other years, like the famous 1943 bronze cent selling for over $1 million because they were struck on the wrong metal. Collectors understand the psychology. Rarity plus authenticity plus demand equals explosive value. So what about the 1973 In elite numismatic circles, a confirmed, authenticated, dramatic 1973 era, especially one involving a wrong metal composition or a spectacular double dia, would represent an almost mythical convergence of rarity and historical intrigue. If such a coin were discovered in pristine condition, graded at the highest levels by professional services like PCGS or NGC, the bidding war could be extraordinary. And that is where the $3 million figure enters the conversation. Now, let's pause for a second. Before you sprint to your coin jar, take a breath. Not every 1973 penny is worth more than a cent. In fact, the overwhelming majority are worth exactly that. But here's the question that should make your heart beat a little faster. How do you know yours isn't the one? Most people don't look, they assume, they dismiss, they pour their coins into Coinstar machines and walk away. But you're still here, you're watching, you're listening, and that means you're not most people. A genuine high-value 1973 cent would likely display unusual characteristics. The weight might differ from the standard 3.11 grams for a bronze cent. The color might appear off a slightly silvery if struck on the wrong metal. The strike might show dramatic doubling in the date or lettering. There could be alignment anomalies or other minting irregularities. Here's where urgency enters the picture. If such a coin exists in private hands and the owner doesn't recognize it, it could be spent accidentally, it could be lost, it could be sitting in a child's piggy bank right now, and once it re-enters circulation unnoticed, the trail goes cold. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually examined a penny under magnification? Be honest. Most of us don't. We glance at the date, maybe, and toss it aside. But collectors who've built generational wealth in this hobby will tell you that fortunes are made by those who pay attention to details others ignore. Picture this scenario. A retired couple cleaning out their attic finds an old bank roll of pennies from the 1970s. They almost deposit it at the bank, but curiosity gets the better of them. They examine the coins one by one, and then they notice something strange about a 1973 cent. It looks lighter, it feels different, it weighs less than it should. They send it for authentication. Weeks later, the grading results confirm a rare off-metal strike in near-perfect condition. The auction catalog description reads like poetry. Bidders from around the country and perhaps around the world prepare to compete. The opening bid shocks observers. The final hammer price climbs past expectations. Headlines follow. $3 million, for a penny that once could have bought a stick of gum. It sounds cinematic, doesn't it? Almost unbelievable. And yet, history shows us that rare coins have shattered records time and time again. When collectors perceive a once-in-a-generation opportunity, rational ceilings evaporate. Now here's the part most people don't consider. Condition is everything. Even if you were fortunate enough to possess a rare 1973 error, its value depends heavily on preservation. A coin graded MS67 or higher commands exponentially more than one in circulated condition. The difference between a lightly worn coin and a pristine specimen can mean hundreds of thousands or sometimes millions of dollars. That's why professionals emphasize proper handling. Never clean a coin, never polish it. Cleaning can destroy original surfaces and erase significant value instantly. If you suspect you have something special, handle it by the edges, store it safely, and consult a reputable grading service. Let's inject a quick reality check, because staying grounded is part of staying profitable. The odds of finding a multi-million-dollar coin are extremely low. This is not a lottery ticket strategy, it's a disciplined, informed approach to asset discovery. But here's the paradox. The odds are low a broken bar, yet someone, somewhere, eventually finds the coin. Why not you? This is where mindset becomes critical. Wealth often hides in plain sight. The difference between those who recognize it and those who overlook it comes down to awareness and action. If you're between 30 and 65, you likely remember handling copper pennies daily before digital payments took over. You may have inherited jars from parents or grandparents. You may have rolls tucked away from decades ago. These coins are not just currency, they're historical artifacts. And history, when rare enough, commands premiums beyond imagination. Imagine transforming a forgotten collection into the down payment on a dream home. Imagine funding retirement without anxiety. Imagine telling your family that the penny everyone ignored turned out to be the cornerstone of financial freedom. It's almost poetic, isn't it? The smallest denomination delivering the largest reward. But before excitement turns into assumption, remember the importance of verification. Seek experts. Use certified scales accurate to hundredths of a gram. Compare your coin against documented error varieties. Knowledge is your shield against both false hope and missed opportunity. And here's a subtle but powerful truth. Even if you never uncover a $3 million rarity, developing the habit of examining assets closely can sharpen your financial instincts in every area of life. So tonight, when you get home, open that drawer, pour those pennies onto a table, listen to the metallic cascade, separate the 1973 D coins, examine them carefully under good lighting, weigh them, look for anomalies, feel the thrill of possibility, but anchor it in discipline, because somewhere in America, perhaps right now, an extraordinary 1973 D Lincoln cent is waiting to be recognized. The question isn't whether such coins can command astonishing sums. History has proven they can. The real question is this: will you be the person who takes the time to look closely enough to find it? Your fortune might not arrive in a briefcase. It might not come through a stock tip or a lottery ticket. It might already be in your pocket, and that possibility alone is worth more than a cent. In 1980, millions of Americans carried a small copper coin in their pockets without a second thought. It passed across diner counters, disappeared into soda machines, and rattled in ashtrays on kitchen tables. Most of those coins were ordinary, but hidden among them quietly, almost invisibly, was a Lincoln cent with no mint mark that today is whispered about in collector circles with a single, electrifying number attached to it: $2.8 million. Yes, $2.8 million, for a penny. Before you laugh and say, "That's impossible," let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly looked at the pennies sitting in your drawer? Not glanced, not assumed. Looked, because the 1980 Lincoln 1-cent coin without a mint mark represents something far greater than copper and zinc. It represents overlooked value. It represents the fortune that hides in plain sight. The story begins with the enduring face of Abraham Lincoln, first placed on the cent in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of his birth. The Lincoln cent became an American constant, surviving world wars, inflation, recessions, and the rise of digital money. By 1980, the designa featuring Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse had become so familiar that few people noticed the details anymore. And that is precisely why rare variations can slip past unnoticed. In 1980, the United States Mint struck Lincoln cents at multiple facilities, including the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. Coins struck in Philadelphia traditionally carried no mint mark during that era, while Denver coins displayed a D. To the average person, that missing mint mark means nothing. To a seasoned collector, it can mean everything. But here is where the narrative shifts. Most 1980 cents without a mint mark are common. They were struck in enormous quantities in Philadelphia. So how could one be worth millions? The answer lies not in the absence of a mint mark alone, but in condition, rarity within rarity, and the microscopic anomalies that separate the ordinary from the extraordinary. In the coin market, value is a layered concept. It is about scarcity. It is about preservation, and sometimes, it is about error. Imagine a 1980 no-mint mark Lincoln cent struck with razor-sharp detail, blazing original luster, and flawless surface as graded at the absolute pinnacle of the Sheldon scale. We are talking about a coin preserved in near miraculous condition, untouched by circulation, free from scratches, nicks, or dulling. A coin that somehow escaped the chaos of commerce for more than 4 decades. Now imagine that same coin exhibiting a rare die anomaly, perhaps a dramatic double die feature visible in Lincoln's profile or in the lettering of Liberty and In God We Trust, or an extraordinary strike characteristic that makes it one of a kind among certified examples. Suddenly, we are no longer discussing pocket change. We are discussing the trophy coin. High-end collectors and investors, really compete fiercely for singular pieces. The kind of individuals who diversify portfolios not just with real estate or stocks, but with tangible historical artifacts. When a coin is certified by top grading services such as Professional Coin Grading Service or Numismatic Guarantee Company at an elite grade, population reports become critical. If there is only one example at that grade, a broken bar, the bidding can escalate into territory that sounds absurd to the average person. $2.8 million does not come from copper content. It comes from competition. It comes from ego. It comes from scarcity combined with demand. And here is where fear enters the equation, because what if one of those coins is sitting in your home right now? What if it isn't a Jordan Lagershi, a broken bar tucked into an old bank envelope, a broken bar sealed inside a forgotten proof set box, a broken bar, or resting quietly in a drawer that hasn't been opened in years? The fear is not that you don't have it. The fear is that you might have had a broken bar and spent it. That is why awareness matters. The 1980 Lincoln cent is composed primarily of copper, though by 1982 the mint would transition to a zinc core. The 1980 issue still carries that heavier copper composition, giving it a distinct weight and sound. If you hold one and drop it gently on a wooden surface, it produces a sharper ring compared to later zinc cents. Small detail, big difference. Collectors examine the surface under magnification, looking for crispness in Lincoln's hair, clarity in the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, and perfection in the fields. A coin graded MS-68 or MS-69 is not just rare, it is microscopic perfection. And here is the humorous twist: most of us treat pennies like lint. We toss them in tip jars, we ignore them in parking lots. Some people literally leave them on the ground because it's only a penny. Imagine explaining to your future self that you stepped over a potential multi-million-dollar asset because bending down felt inconvenient. History has shown time and again that overlooked coins can explode in value when collectors recognize extreme rarity at the highest certified grades. Auction houses have witnessed bidding wars that defy logic. Wealthy buyers see more than a coin, they see exclusivity, and exclusivity sells. But let's be clear and authoritative here, not every 1980 no-mint mark penny is worth millions. In circulated condition, most are worth only a few cents above face value. Even in uncirculated condition, many trade for modest premiums. The million-dollar tier belongs to the absolute finest known example s, the coins that combine elite preservation, potential rare die characteristics, and verified certification from top-tier grading authorities. So how do you know if yours has potential? First, examine the mint mark area carefully. A true Philadelphia strike from 1980 will have no mint mark beneath the date. If you see a D, it was struck in Denver. If you see damage or a suspicious surface where a mint mark might have been removed, that drastically reduces value. Authenticity is everything. Second, study the coin under magnification. Look for doubling in the date, in Liberty, or in Lincoln's features. Look for unusual strike strength or anomalies that stand out from normal examples. If you are unsure, do not clean the coin. Cleaning destroys value instantly. Yes, instantly. A coin that could have commanded thousands or more can drop to a fraction of that if its original surfaces are altered. The numismatic market values originality above shine. Remember that. Third, consider professional grading. Submitting a coin to a reputable grading service establishes authenticity and condition. Without certification, extraordinary claims will not be taken seriously in high-end markets. Now let's pause for a moment. Picture your life if you discovered a coin certified at the top of the population report, or recognized as the finest known 1980 no-mint mark Lincoln cent with a dramatic, documented die error. Picture the auction listing, the spotlight photography, the anticipation building among bidders across the country. The auctioneer's voice rises, the numbers climb. 1 million, 1.5, 2 million, $2.8 million. The hammer falls. In that instant, a coin once dismissed as spare change transforms into generational wealth. This is not fantasy thinking. This is how elite collectibles operate. Art, rare cars, vintage watches, and yes, coins have crossed into multi-million-dollar territory when rarity and demand converge. But here's the cliffhanger that keeps collectors awake at night. population reports change. A coin believed to be unique today may face competition tomorrow if another example surfaces. Timing matters. Market cycles matter. Attention matters. Right now, as awareness of high-grade modern coins grows, collectors are re-examining pieces once considered too recent to matter. The 1980 Lincoln cent sits at an interesting intersection: old enough to be scarce and pristine condition, modern enough that many were mishandled. That combination fuels opportunity. If you are between 30 and 65, you are positioned at a powerful crossroads. You understand both the analog past and the digital present. You know what it feels like to handle physical cash daily. And you also recognize the growing appeal of tangible assets in uncertain economic times. Coins are history you can hold. They are finite. They cannot be printed on demand once mintage is complete. And condition rarity. A coin surviving in immaculate state has become scarcer every year. So here is the urgency. Do not assume your pennies are worthless. Do not dismiss the coffee can of change inherited from a relative. Do not overlook that roll of 1980 cents sitting quietly in storage. Examine them, research them, protect them, because wealth does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it hides behind a humble portrait of Abraham Lincoln, waiting for someone with curiosity and courage to notice. And if you are still skeptical, ask yourself this: how many life-changing discoveries began with someone deciding to take a closer look? The 1980 no-mintmark Lincoln cent is more than a coin. It is a reminder that value is often invisible until recognized. It challenges us to see differently, to question assumptions, to act before opportunity slips away. Somewhere in America, a penny worth a fortune may still be waiting to be found. The only question is whether it will be you who finds it or someone else who beat you to it. So tonight, before you scroll past another distraction, before you dismiss another coin as insignificant, take a moment, open that drawer, pour out that jar, hold each 1980 Lincoln cent under the light. Look at the date, look at the mint mark area, look closely, because the next time someone says, "It's just a penny," you might smile, knowing that sometimes, just sometimes, a single cent can rewrite a lifetime. Imagine holding 1 cent in your hand that could change your financial future. It sounds impossible, almost ridiculous. After all, it's just a penny. But history has a way of rewarding the observant, the patient, and the prepared. And the 1992 Lincoln cent has become one of the most talked about modern rarities in American coin collecting. On its face, the coin bears the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, a design first introduced in 1909. On the reverse in 1992, two simple wheat-style words had long since been replaced by the Lincoln Memorial design, framing the inscription United States of America and the denomination 1 cent. And just beneath the date, a tiny letter, D. That small mint mark tells us the coin was struck at the Denver facility of the United States Mint. Billions were produced. Billions. So how could one possibly be worth more than your house? Here's where the story shifts. In the early 1990s, the Mint was preparing to transition to a subtle redesign of the reverse lettering spacing. Specifically, the distance between the letters A and M in the word America. On most 1992 pennies, those two letters are clearly separated. There's a visible gap, but on a tiny number of coins struck in Denver that year, the letters are almost touching, nearly fused together. This variety is known among collectors as the close AM. That small difference is so small you might need magnification to see it. It changed everything. For years, the close AM was believed to exist only on proof coins from 1992. Proof coins are specially struck for collectors. They are not supposed to appear in everyday pocket change. And yet, somehow, a small number of circulation strike 1992 pennies were minted using proof reverse dies. Whether through die mix-ups, transitional production errors, or simple human oversight, these coins escaped into the wild. And that's where the excitement begins. Picture someone in the late 1990s casually sorting through change. A routine glance, A moment of curiosity, a magnifying glass, and suddenly a broken bar. The letters A and M look too close, too tight. The realization sets in, this isn't normal. When authenticated, these 1992D close AM pennies began commanding astonishing prices at auction, not hundreds of dollars, not even just thousands. In top condition, certified examples have sold for tens of thousands of dollars. High-grade specimens, especially those in near-perfect mint state, have crossed well into five figures. Now let's pause for a second. If you're watching this, you might be thinking, the broken bar, are you telling me a penny from 1992 could make me rich? Here's the truth, and it's important. While headlines and online rumors sometimes throw around multi-million-dollar figures, there is no verified public sale of a 1992D Lincoln Cent for $2.5 million. That number belongs more to internet fantasy than documented auction reality. The highest confirmed sales for the 1992D close AM are in the tens of thousands of dollars range, depending heavily on condition and certification. But before you click away, consider this. Even a coin worth $20,000 or $30,000 began as 1 cent. 1 cent. That transformation from pocket change to life-altering asset is what makes this story powerful, because the value isn't magic, it's mathematics. Scarcity multiplied by demand, amplified by condition, and validated by professional grading. Let's talk scarcity. Only a tiny number of 1992D close AM cents have ever been confirmed. Estimates vary, but compared to the billions struck that year, we're talking about a microscopic survival rate. That rarity creates tension in the marketplace. Collectors compete, investors watch. Prices climb, then comes condition. A worn example discovered in circulation may bring thousands, but a coin preserved in brilliant, uncirculated condition, free of scratches, spots, and handling marks, can command dramatically more. In numismatics, condition is king. A difference of a single grade point can mean thousands of dollars. Now imagine the emotional roller coaster, the fear of having spent one unknowingly, the excitement of checking every jar of change in the house, the urgency of acting before someone else finds one first. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly examined your pennies? Most people never do. We overlook them because they feel insignificant, but that mindset is precisely why rare varieties can hide in plain sight for years. The 1992D close AM wasn't discovered immediately after minting. It took time, it took awareness, it took someone willing to look closer. And here's where the second act of our story deepens. Suppose you find a 1992D penny, you grab a magnifier, you examine the word America. If the A and M are clearly separated, it's the common variety, worth face value, maybe a few cents in bulk copper speculation. But if those letters are nearly touching, if the bases of the A and M are aligned and the spacing is tight, you may be looking at something extraordinary. But don't rush to sell it online in a blurry photo listing. Professional authentication is critical. Reputable grading services examine the coin under controlled conditions, confirm the variety, assign a grade, and encapsulate it in a tamper-evident holder. That certification transforms suspicion into verified rarity, and verified rarity is what serious buyers pay for. Now here's a pattern interrupt for you. If pennies were worthless, banks wouldn't count them so carefully, would they? We laugh, but attention to detail is where fortunes are found. The psychology of coin collecting plays a major role here. For collectors aged 30 to 65, especially those who grew up handling these coins daily, there's nostalgia attached to the Lincoln Cent. It's a symbol of American continuity, a coin that has survived wars, recessions, technological revolutions. Owning a rare variety connects the collector to a tangible moment in minting history, a production anomaly frozen in copper. And as inflation erodes purchasing power and markets fluctuate, tangible assets gain appeal. Rare coins are portable, recognized globally, finite. They cannot be printed at will. But let's address the elephant in the room. Could a 1992D penny ever reach into the millions? In today's verified market environment, that would require unprecedented demand, elite condition, and extraordinary collector competition. While some legendary U.S. coins like certain early American gold pieces have crossed multi-million-dollar thresholds, the 1992D close AM remains in the five-figure category based on documented sales. And yet markets evolve. The coin world has seen dramatic price growth when new collectors enter, when registry competition intensifies, and when media attention spotlights specific varieties. A record-setting sale can reset expectations overnight. That possibility, however remote, is what fuels dreams. But dreams without action are just entertainment. So here's your moment of decision. Will you ignore the change in your drawer, or will you take 15 minutes this week to examine it carefully? The third act of this story isn't about speculation, it's about empowerment. Start with knowledge. Learn the diagnostics of the 1992D close AM. Study clear comparison images from reputable numismatic sources. Invest in a simple 10x loop. Separate your 1992D pennies. Examine spacing. Check for signs of alteration, because yes, counterfeiters sometimes attempt to modify coins to mimic rarities. Be methodical, be patient, and if you believe you've found one, resist the temptation to clean it. Cleaning destroys value instantly. Leave it exactly as it is and submit it to a respected grading service. Imagine email notification. Your coin has been authenticated, the variety confirmed, the grade higher than you expected. Suddenly, what sat unnoticed for decades becomes an asset. Excitement surges, but so does responsibility. Do you consign it to auction? Hold it as a long-term store of value? Negotiate privately with the collector seeking to complete a registry set? These decisions require strategy, not emotion, because wealth isn't created by luck alone, it's secured by informed action. The 1992D close AM Lincoln Cent teaches a powerful lesson. Value hides in details. Opportunity rewards attention, and sometimes, the smallest objects carry the greatest potential. No. The average 1992D penny will not fund a mansion, and no verified sale supports a $2.5 million market price today. But the existence of even a handful worth tens of thousands proves something profound. Extraordinary value can exist inside ordinary appearances. So tonight, before you dismiss the change in your pocket, pause. Ask yourself, what if one overlooked detail could alter your financial trajectory? What if the coin you've ignored for years carries a story the market is willing to reward? History shows that rare coins surface in the most unexpected places: piggy banks, inherited jars, estate collections, forgotten drawers. The question is not whether they exist, the question is whether you will look, because somewhere, right now, a 1992D close AM penny is still waiting to be discovered. And it only takes one. Before you dismiss that small copper penny sitting in a jar, let me ask you something. What if a single cent adjust only could change the direction of your financial future? What if the 1995 Lincoln 1 cent with no mint mark in your drawer held a secret most Americans overlook every single day? And what if the difference between pocket change and life-changing money came down to knowing exactly what to look for? For millions of Americans between 30 and 65, coins are more than metal. They are memory, legacy, and sometimes opportunity. The 1995 Lincoln cent without a mint mark appears ordinary at first glance. On the front, the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial design that defined generations of American coinage. No flashy commemorative artwork, no silver, no gold, just copper-plated zinc. Simple, quiet, unassuming, and that is exactly why it hides in plain sight. In 1995, the United States Mint produced billions of Lincoln cents. The vast majority came from Philadelphia, and coins from that facility traditionally carried no mint mark at all. So a 1995 penny with no mint mark is not rare by default. In fact, most of them are worth exactly 1 cent. Pause for a second. If most are worth 1 cent a broken bar, why do rumors circulate online claiming values in the millions and numbers like $2.2 million attached to this humble coin? Because in coin collecting, condition and era change everything. Let's step into the first layer of reality. A typical 1995 no-mint mark Lincoln cent in circulated condition, meaning it has lived its life passing through registers, vending machines, and pockets, is worth face value 1 cent, maybe 2 cents in bulk copper trade. That's the calm truth. But now comes the shift. Within that same year exists a famous variety, the 1995 double die obverse. This is not a minor scratch. This is a dramatic doubling visible in the inscriptions "Liberty" and "In God We Trust." When magnified, the letters appear slightly shadowed, as if printed twice. This was a legitimate mint error, and collectors immediately took notice. Suddenly, a 1 cent coin could command hundreds, then thousands. High-grade examples of the 1995 double die obverse have sold for well over $1,000, and pristine certified specimens can bring several $1,000s depending on market demand. Not millions, but enough to make anyone look twice at their change. Now here is where excitement meets discipline. The internet has a habit of inflating stories. A headline claiming a penny is worth $2.2 million spreads faster than a sober appraisal. Fear of missing out kicks in. People rush to check jars, piggy banks, inherited collections, and that emotional surge, hope mixed with urgency, is powerful. But wealth is built on knowledge, not hype. If a 1995 no-mint mark penny were truly worth $2.2 million, it would require something extraordinary, perhaps a unique minting error never before recorded, a wrong Plankett strike, or a one-of-a-kind anomaly verified by top grading services. As of today, no standard 1995 Lincoln cent without an extraordinary error has reached anything close to that figure. And that's not bad news, because real opportunity still exists. Act 2 of this story is about awareness. Most Americans underestimate the power of condition. A coin graded MS67 or higher, meaning near flawless, can multiply in value compared to a circulated piece. That same 1995 cent in brilliant, untouched condition, carefully preserved from the day it left the mint, can sell for significantly more than face value. Add a recognized error like the double die, and the multiplier grows again. Here's the critical moment. Are you checking your coins with intention, or with assumption? Take a magnifying glass, examine the date, study the lettering, look for doubling, inspect the surface for original luster, the cartwheel shine that rotates under light. If your coin looks dull and worn, expectations should be modest. If it gleams like it just left the press, your curiosity should rise. And here's a humorous reset for you. If your penny looks like it survived 3 decades inside a washing machine, it probably isn't retiring you early. But if it doesn't, a broken bar, keep watching, because grading is the bridge between speculation and market value. Professional certification by reputable third-party grading services determines authenticity and condition. Without that certification, buyers remain cautious. With it, confidence rises, and so does price potential. This brings us to the emotional crossroads many viewers face. You may be sitting on inherited coins from parents or grandparents. You may have jars collected over decades. You may even have rolls of uncirculated cents tucked away since the 1990s. The question is no longer, is this worth $2.2 million? The real question is, could I be overlooking a legitimate collector's piece? That shift from fantasy to informed possibility is empowering. In Act 3, the story becomes personal. Imagine discovering a 1995 double die in high grade. Imagine sending it for certification. Weeks pass. Anticipation builds. The slab arrives in the mail, sealed, graded, authenticated. The market confirms its value in the thousands. Is that millions? Number. But is it a meaningful financial gain from a 1-cent coin? Absolutely. And that mindset to turning overlooked details into opportunity is how collectors build wealth steadily over time. Because here's the secret seasoned collectors understand: it's rarely one coin worth millions. It's knowledge applied consistently. It's spotting errors others miss. It's preserving condition. It's understanding supply and demand. It's timing the market. It's building relationships with reputable dealers and auction houses. Fear says, what if I miss the $1 million penny? Wisdom says, what if I ignore $1,000 one? There is urgency, but it is the urgency of education, not panic. The 1995 no-mintmark Lincoln cent teaches a powerful lesson. Billions were made. Most are common. A few are special. The difference lies in microscopic detail. That principle applies not only to coins but to opportunity itself. So what should you do right now? First, gather your 1995 pennies. Separate those in excellent condition. Second, inspect carefully for doubling on the obverse lettering. Third, avoid cleaning the coin under any circumstances. Cleaning destroys value instantly. Fourth, consider professional grading if the coin appears uncirculated or displays clear doubling. And finally, approach claims of $1 million valuations with calm skepticism. Extraordinary prices are rare and documented through major auctions. They leave public records. They create headlines backed by verifiable data. If you ever do encounter a truly unique or a one never recorded, then yes, the sky becomes the limit. But those discoveries are once-in-a-generation events. Here's the cliffhanger most people never consider. What if the real fortune in your possession isn't a single coin, but a collection built methodically from knowledge starting today? 30 years from now, today's common coins could become tomorrow's scarce survivors in pristine condition. The collectors who win are the ones who start paying attention before the crowd does. That penny in your hand represents more than currency. It represents awareness. It represents the discipline to separate myth from market reality. It represents the decision to educate yourself instead of chasing viral numbers. And education is the only asset that compounds without limit. So yes, check your 1995 no-mintmark Lincoln cent. Examine it carefully. Respect the possibility, but anchor yourself in truth. A coin's value is determined by rarity, demand, and condition and not headlines. Because the most dangerous mistake isn't missing a mythical $2.2 million penny, it's ignoring the real, attainable opportunities sitting quietly in your change. Now look again at that small copper disc. Turn it under the light. Study Lincoln's profile. Examine the letters. Ask yourself one final question. If others are overlooking the details of broken bar, will you? Your journey into coin wealth doesn't begin with hype. It begins with 1 cent and the decision to truly see it. History has proven again and again that seemingly common coins have transformed into life-changing assets because of one overlooked detail, a small variation, a rare error, a microscopic anomaly. And in the world of coin collecting, those details can mean the difference between 1 cent and a multi-million-dollar auction result. The year 2000 marked the beginning of a new millennium. The country was buzzing with anticipation, uncertainty, and technological fear. Remember Y2K? People stocked water, batteries, canned food. Meanwhile, the United States Mint continued striking billions of Lincoln cents. Most of them were business strikes produced for everyday circulation. Many bore mint marks, D for Denver, some had S for San Francisco proof issues. And then there were those without a mint mark, A struck at the Philadelphia Mint, where traditionally no mint mark was used on Lincoln cents intended for circulation. But here's where the story becomes fascinating. In a sea of billions of ordinary 2000 pennies, the rarest and most valuable examples are not ordinary at all. They are defined by condition, by error, by precision, and sometimes by a production anomaly so rare that only a handful are known to exist. A coin that appears identical to the one in your pocket could, under magnification and expert evaluation, reveal itself to be a once-in-a-generation discovery. Picture this. A pristine 2000 Lincoln cent, no mint mark, preserved in flawless mint state condition, not just shiny, not just red, but graded at the absolute top of the scale. MS-78 perfection, nearly impossible for a circulation strike. Now add something even rarer, a dramatic mint error, perhaps an off-center strike, a double ISO bolded date appears shadowed and sculptural, or a wrong plan kit anomaly that slipped through quality control at the dawn of the millennium. Suddenly, we are no longer talking about a penny, we are talking about a trophy coin. In the rare coin market, rarity combined with condition creates explosive value. Collectors are not just buying metal, they are buying uniqueness, they are buying the story, they are buying exclusivity. When two wealthy collectors compete for a coin that may be the finest known example, price becomes secondary, emotion takes over, pride takes over, legacy takes over, and that is how a coin with a face value of 1 cent can escalate into a 7-figure auction headline. Now let's pause for a moment. If you have drawers of pennies stored away, and most Americans over 30 do, when was the last time you actually looked at them carefully, not glanced, looked, under magnification, in proper lighting? Because here is a reality most people overlook. Rare coins are not always discovered by professionals, they are often found by ordinary individuals who took the time to examine what they already owned. The 2000 no-mintmark Lincoln cent features the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, a design introduced in 1909. On the reverse, for that year, the Lincoln Memorial still stands, a design that defined the cent for decades before it was replaced in 2009. Billions were struck, but perfection, dramatic error, exceptional preservation, those are scarce, and scarcity is power. Let me ask you something. What would you do if you discovered that a coin you've had for 20 years could pay off your mortgage, fund your retirement, secure your children's future? Would you hesitate, or would you act immediately? Because here's where urgency enters the picture. The rare coin market is not static. High-end collectors are actively searching for top population coins. Auction houses are constantly seeking headline-grabbing pieces. Prices rise when demand outpaces supply, and in the case of ultra-high-grade or rarer 2000 Lincoln cents, supply is microscopic. There have been documented instances in numismatic history where modern coins, initially ignored, later exploded in value because only a handful survived in pristine condition. Think about that, survival. It's not just about how many were made, it's about how many remained perfect. Most 2000 pennies entered circulation immediately. They were tossed into pockets, fed into vending machines, scratched, dulled, damaged. Very few were preserved in immaculate condition from the moment they were struck. Even fewer were stored in controlled environments, untouched by fingerprints, moisture, or friction. Now add the possibility of a major mint error, a double die so strong it catches the eye without magnification, a broad strike that escaped the collar, a rare transitional composition anomaly. These events are statistical outliers, they are accidents. And accidents, in coin collecting, can be worth fortunes. But here's the twist, and stay with me. Not every 2000 no-mintmark penny is valuable. In fact, most are worth exactly 1 cent. This is where knowledge becomes your greatest asset. Blindly assuming value is dangerous, but ignoring potential value is even more dangerous. The difference lies in authentication and grading. Professional grading services evaluate coins on a strict numerical scale. A jump from MS-65 to MS-67 can multiply value dramatically. A perfect MS-70 example, that is where the conversation enters elite territory. Combine perfection with rarity, and you create auction energy that drives headlines. Imagine two collectors seated across a bidding floor. Both understand that the coin in front of them may be the finest known 2000 no-mintmark Lincoln cent in existence. Both know that once it sells, another may not appear for years, perhaps decades. Do you think they will argue over a few $1,000s, or will competitive instinct push the number higher and higher? This is how modern coins shock the world. And let's talk about psychology for a moment. Many people over 30 remember handling pennies daily. They remember buying candy for a handful of cents, gas under $2. Life felt different. There is nostalgia attached to coins from that era. Emotional attachment amplifies value in subtle ways. Collectors of the future will look back at early millennium coinage as a symbolic marker of transition, a pre-digital saturation, pre-contactless payments dominating daily life. Physical currency is slowly fading from daily use, and when something disappears from everyday life, pristine survivors become artifacts. Let me interrupt your thoughts with a simple question. When was the last time you paid for something entirely in pennies? Exactly. That era is slipping away. As society moves toward digital transactions, tangible currency becomes historical. The best preserved examples become museum-level collectibles, and the 2000 Lincoln cent represents the dawn of a new century, a symbolic turning point. Now imagine discovering that your coin, the one sitting quietly in storage, is not only rare but authenticated as one of the finest known examples. The grading label confirms it. The population report shows only one or two in existence at that level. Suddenly, collectors begin making private offers. Auction houses call. Media outlets show interest. $2 million is not just a number. It is financial freedom. It is leverage. It is transformation. But here's the cliffhanger, and it's critical. How many people have already spent a potential fortune without ever knowing it? How many rare coins have passed through cash registers unnoticed? The truth is uncomfortable. Valuable coins are lost every day because owners never learned what to look for. So what should you do? First, inspect any 2000 Lincoln cent without a mint mark carefully. Look for exceptional luster. Look for sharp, fully struck details in Lincoln's hair and beard. Examine the date for doubling. Check for off-center strikes or unusual planchet characteristics. Use magnification. Handle coins by the edges only. Second, if you suspect you have something unusual, consult a reputable coin dealer or submit the coin to a professional grading service. Authentication is the gateway to serious value. Third, act with awareness. The market rewards informed sellers. Timing matters. Presentation matters. Certification matters. And here is something empowering. You do not need to be a lifelong numismatist to recognize opportunity. You need curiosity. You need discipline. You need the willingness to look where others have not. The next time you see a simple penny, resist the urge to ignore it. Instead, ask yourself, what if? What if this small copper disc is not just spare change, but a key to wealth, a key to legacy, a key to a story that begins with a jar of coins and ends on an auction stage with applause? Because in the end, the 2000 no-mintmark Lincoln cent is more than metal. It is a reminder that value often hides in plain sight, that overlooked objects can carry extraordinary potential, that opportunity does not always announce itself with fanfare, sometimes it whispers. And for those who listen, who inspect, who take action, the reward can be life-altering. So before you scroll away, before you dismiss the pennies in your possession as ordinary, consider this: fortunes have been built on knowledge others ignored. Your next step could determine whether that 2000 penny remains 1 cent, a broken bar, or becomes the most important discovery of your financial life. Look closely, because the difference between ordinary and extraordinary may already be in your hands.
In 1970, while America was watching the moon landings fade into memory and the country wrestled with change, something far quieter was happening inside the walls of the Denver Mint. Billions of pennies were being struck. They looked ordinary. They felt ordinary. They bought ordinary things: a newspaper, a piece of candy, a moment in time. But hidden among those copper discs was a coin that today whispers a very different story. A 1970 Lincoln cent that, under the right conditions, in the right state of preservation, with the right anomaly, can command numbers so staggering they sound fictional. We are talking about values discussed in the realm of $3 million. $3 million for a penny. Now pause for a second. Check your pockets. Think about the jar on your dresser, the coffee can in the garage, the old cigar box in the closet that hasn't been opened in decades. What if the smallest coin in your home holds the largest opportunity of your life? The 1970D Lincoln cent was struck at the Denver Mint, carrying the small but powerful D mint mark beneath the date. It bears the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, a design introduced in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of his birth. On the reverse, the classic wheat ears had already been retired in favor of the Lincoln Memorial, a symbol of stability and American endurance. Nothing flashy, nothing dramatic, just a penny. And that is precisely why most people overlook it. In 1970, over 2 billion Lincoln cents were struck in Denver alone. 2 billion. That number creates a dangerous assumption. Common equals worthless. But seasoned collectors understand a deeper truth. Value is rarely about how many were made. It is about how many survived in extraordinary condition, or how many left the mint with something so rare, so unusual, that they transcend their original face value entirely. Some 1970D cents exhibit sharp, blazing red luster that appears almost untouched by time. Others reveal striking anomalies, dramatic die errors, doubled inscriptions, rare die varieties. The kind of microscopic differences that only the trained eye notices at first glance. Yet once discovered, they transform an ordinary cent into a prize pursued by serious collectors with serious money. And here is where the story shifts. Because in the world of elite numismatics, condition is king. A coin graded at the absolute top of the scale, virtually flawless, full original mint red, razor-sharp details, no distracting marks, enters a different universe of valuation. When rarity meets perfection, price becomes a headline. Imagine a 1970D Lincoln cent preserved in pristine mint state condition, exhibiting a dramatic and highly sought-after die anomaly, authenticated and graded by a top-tier grading service. In the rarest scenarios, the kind that ignite bidding wars between advanced registry set collectors, numbers can climb into territory that feels surreal. 7 figures, multi-million discussions, a potential valuation whispered around $3 million when the stars align. Is every 1970D penny worth millions? Absolutely not. And that is exactly why the few that are command such power. Scarcity inside abundance. That is the paradox. Think about how many 1970D pennies were tossed into circulation, slid across counters, dropped into parking meters, forgotten in couch cushions. Most were worn down by decades of use. Edges softened, luster faded, tiny scratches accumulated from pocket change friction. The overwhelming majority became what they were meant to be, 1 cent. But a fraction avoided that fate. Some were set aside in mint sets. Some were carefully stored by collectors who sensed future potential. And a microscopic number left the mint with errors so bold they became legends. Within the collecting community, here is the part that should make you lean in closer. In today's market, high-end registry collectors compete fiercely for the finest known examples of key dates and varieties. These are not casual hobbyists. These are investors, entrepreneurs, professionals in their 40s, 50s, and 60s who understand assets. They recognize that tangible, historically significant, condition-sensitive coins can function as alternative stores of wealth. When do determined buyers decide they must own the best 1970D Lincoln cent known? Logic sometimes gives way to competition, and competition fuels price. Let's talk about what separates a $1,000 coin from a $1 million coin. It is not just age. It is not just the mint mark. It is the microscopic details, the strength of the strike on Lincoln's hair, The clarity of the lettering in Liberty, the crispness of the date, the depth and originality of the red copper surfaces. Even the slightest doubling in the design elements can transform market perception. Collectors search for dramatic double dies, repunched mint marks, off-center strikes, wrong blanket errors, anomalies that occurred during the minting process. When such an error appears on a coin that is also preserved in top-tier condition, the market reacts. And here's a question that might reset your perspective. When was the last time you examined a penny under magnification? Be honest, most people never do. They assume pennies are insignificant. Yet the same people will scroll through listings online, stunned to see certain Lincoln cents commanding 5, 6, even 7 figures. They wonder how it happened. They wonder who found it. They wonder if they missed their chance. That feeling, that quiet fear of overlooking opportunity is powerful because opportunity rarely announces itself with fireworks. Sometimes it hides in plain sight. The 1970D Lincoln cent represents more than copper and zinc. It represents a decision point. Will you treat your old coins as clutter or as potential assets? Will you dismiss them at face value, or will you investigate them with the seriousness they deserve? Across the United States, from small-town drawers to suburban safety deposit boxes, collections sit untouched. Many owners are between 30 and 65 years old. Some inherited coins from parents or grandparents. Others saved rolls decades ago and forgot about them. Life got busy. Careers, families, responsibilities took priority. But markets evolve. Demand shifts. Wealth flows into alternative assets. And suddenly, a coin that once bought a stick of gum becomes a conversation piece in high-end auctions. Now imagine this scenario. You rediscover an old roll labeled 1970D. You carefully examine each coin. One stands out, blazing red, nearly flawless, sharp strike. Under magnification, you notice unusual doubling in the date or lettering. Your heart rate increases slightly. Is it real? Is it significant? You submit it for professional grading. Weeks pass. Then the email arrives. Top population. Exceptional variety. Certified. This is where excitement collides with possibility, because the difference between spending that penny and safeguarding, it may be the difference between ordinary and extraordinary financial outcomes. For some, selling a rare coin funds a business venture. For others, it eliminates debt. For a few, it transforms retirement plans. Wealth does not always arrive in predictable packages, and yet, caution is essential. The coin market rewards knowledge and punishes haste. Not every online claim is accurate. Not every bright penny is rare. Authentication and grading are critical. Reputable auction platforms matter. Timing matters. Understanding buyer psychology matters. When you approach the process strategically, you position yourself for maximum value. Here is something most people overlook. Serious collectors are not buying nostalgia. They are buying ranking. They are buying the best known. They are buying bragging rights within registry sets. That competitive instinct, that desire to own number one, is what can drive a 1970D Lincoln cent into multi-million-dollar territory under extraordinary circumstances. So, where does that leave you? It leaves you with responsibility. Responsibility to examine what you already own. Responsibility to learn the distinguishing characteristics of high-grade examples. Responsibility to protect potential assets from damage. Because a single fingerprint can reduce value dramatically. And let's add a touch of humor to keep this grounded. If you're still tossing pennies into a cup holder like they're disposable, it might be time to reconsider your relationship with copper, because the next coin you overlook could be the one someone else would pay a fortune to acquire. The market today values perfection and rarity at levels few imagined decades ago. Conversations about $3 million are not about average circulated coins. They are about elite, exceptional, museum-worthy examples that surface perhaps once in a generation. When they do, headlines follow, collectors watch, investors compete, and every viewer listening right now faces the same silent question. What if the coin you've ignored for years deserves a second look? What if that forgotten 1970D penny carries traits that elevate it into a category reserved for the extraordinary? What if the path to a more secure, even luxurious lifestyle begins not with speculation, but with careful evaluation of what you already possess? Fear of missing out is powerful, but informed action is even more powerful. Start by inspecting your coins under proper lighting. Look for strong, original red color. Search for sharp details and unusual doubling. Protect them in non-PVC holders. Consult reputable grading services. Study realized auction prices for top population examples. Treat the process like an investor, not a gambler. Because here is the truth. Wealth often hides in assets others dismiss. Most Americans have handled thousands of pennies in their lifetime. We've tossed them into jars, left them in car cup holders, fed them into vending machines, and sometimes ignored them completely. But the 1975 D-Mint Mark Lincoln 1 cent is not just another penny. Under the right circumstances, in the right condition, with the right combination of rarity and error, it transforms from spare change into generational wealth. The story begins in 1975 at the Denver Mint. America was emerging from the turbulence of the early 70s. Inflation was rising, confidence was fragile, and the U.S. Mint was striking billions of coins to keep commerce moving. The familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, first introduced in 1909, remained on the obverse. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial stood tall and dignified, symbolizing endurance and national identity. The 1975 D. Lincoln cent was struck in enormous numbers. On paper, there was nothing extraordinary about it. It was composed primarily of copper, being 3.11 grams, with that unmistakable reddish glow when freshly minted. Millions upon millions were produced. So, how could something so common ever be worth millions? Here's where the narrative shifts. Within massive production runs, anomalies happen. Dies crack. Blankets are improperly prepared. Striking pressure fluctuates. And sometimes, in rare and almost mythical circumstances, a coin emerges that defies expectations. Collectors live for these moments. Investors hunt for them. And when one surfaces in pristine, nearly flawless condition, especially with dramatic mint errors or unique characteristics, the market reacts with explosive intensity. Now imagine a 1975 D. Lincoln set preserved in virtually perfect mint state. No circulation wear. Full blazing red luster. Razor-sharp strike details. Microscopic inspection reveals an extraordinary anomaly, perhaps a rare double die characteristic, or a dramatic off-metal strike, or a one-of-a-kind transitional error never meant to leave the mint. In such cases, rarity collides with condition, and when rarity meets perfection, the price doesn't rise gradually. It leaps. $2.8 million is not paid for an ordinary penny. It is paid for a story, a narrative of impossibility, a coin that should not exist in that form, yet does. A coin that survives decades without damage. A coin that becomes the centerpiece of elite collections. Let's pause for a moment. When was the last time you truly examined the pennies in your home? Be honest. Are they sitting in a jar somewhere? In a drawer? In a forgotten box in the attic? It sounds almost humorous. Life-changing wealth hiding next to paper clips and old receipts, but history has proven stranger things. The psychology of coin collecting is powerful. Serious collectors are not just buying metal, they are buying scarcity. They are buying bragging rights. They are buying the only example known in a particular grade. And when do wealthy collectors want the same coin, logic leaves the room. Auctions become battlegrounds. Prices escalate beyond conventional valuation models. That is how a 1975 D. Lincoln Cent, under extraordinary circumstances, can command a valuation reaching into the millions. But here's the tension. Not every 1975 D penny is worth more than 1 cent. In fact, most are still worth exactly that. The difference between a coin worth a penny and one worth $2.8 million can come down to minute details invisible to the naked eye. Surface preservation, strike sharpness, mint errors, die varieties, authentication, professional grading. This is where urgency enters the picture. If you are between 30 and 65 years old, you have likely handled coins your entire life. You may have inherited jars of change from parents or grandparents. You may have old bank rolls tucked away. The window of opportunity to evaluate those coins properly is now. Markets shift. Demand fluctuates. Elite collectors compete aggressively when rare pieces surface, but they cannot compete for what they do not know exists. Consider the grading scale. Coins graded MS67, MS68, or beyond are exponentially rarer than lower grades. A slight tick, a faint scratch, a dulling of luster. Each imperfection can reduce value dramatically. But when a coin survives untouched, preserved from circulation, it becomes a time capsule. And time capsules ignite excitement. Imagine discovering that among your coins lies a pristine 1975 D cent with a rare, documented mint error. Imagine submitting it to a top-tier grading service. Weeks of anticipation. The sealed holder arrives. You open the package. The grade is astonishingly high. Authentication confirmed. The error validated. Suddenly, auction houses are calling. Private collectors are making discreet inquiries. What would that feel like? Excitement, disbelief, perhaps even fear. Fear of making the wrong move. Fear of underselling. Fear of not recognizing value until it's too late. And that fear is healthy, because in the rare coin market, knowledge separates the wealthy from the regretful. The 1975 D. Lincoln Cent becomes extraordinary when it intersects with three forces: rarity, condition, and demand. Remove any one of those, and value collapses. Align all three, and you create a storm of competition. There is something poetic about Abraham Lincoln's portrait appearing on a coin that could change a family's financial trajectory. Lincoln himself rose from humble beginnings. A 1 cent coin bearing his image rising to multi-million-dollar status feels almost symbolic. But let's ground this in practical strategy. If you believe you may possess older pennies, especially from the 70s or earlier, do not clean them. Cleaning destroys value instantly. That shiny improvement can erase thousands or millions of dollars in potential worth. Handle coins by the edges. Store them safely. Consult reputable numismatic professionals. Seek authentication before making assumptions. Now, here's a question to reset your attention. If someone offered you a penny for your thoughts, would you accept it? Probably not. But what if that penny was the 1975 D in pristine, rare condition? Suddenly that phrase feels very different. The market has seen astonishing auction results for rare Lincoln Cents over the years. When headlines announce multi-million-dollar sales, it triggers a chain reaction. More people search their collections. More coins surface. More competition emerges. And for a brief window, spotlight intensifies. That spotlight does not stay forever. Collectors move on to the next discovery. Media attention fades. Momentum shifts, which means timing matters. If an elite grade 1975 D Lincoln set with extraordinary characteristics is authenticated today, it enters a market primed by fascination with rare pennies. But 5 or 10 years from now, the landscape may look entirely different. This is the cliffhanger most people ignore. The coin you have not examined could be the opportunity you never realized you missed. Think about the broader lifestyle impact. $2.8 million is not simply a number. It represents freedom from debt, early retirement, investment portfolios, real estate acquisitions, financial security for children and grandchildren, all from a coin originally worth 1 cent. And yet, for every legendary sale, there are countless pennies spent without a second glance. The difference is awareness. The 1975 D-mint mark is located just below the date on the obverse. A small letter, easy to overlook. But that small letter anchors the coin to a specific mint facility, a specific production environment, a specific set of dies. Within that environment, rare anomalies can occur. If you are serious about unlocking potential wealth from your coin collection, develop a disciplined approach. Organize your coins by year and mint mark. Use magnification tools. Learn to identify doubling, off-center strikes, unusual coloration, and weight discrepancies. Compare against verified examples. Educate yourself on grading standards, and above all, be patient. The journey from pocket change to multi-million-dollar auction is not instant. It requires verification, strategic presentation, and sometimes waiting for the right buyer at the right time. But patience amplifies reward. Here is the final thought, and perhaps the most important. The 1975 D Lincoln 1 cent represents possibility, not guarantee. Possibility. It reminds us that value is not always visible at first glance. That something dismissed as insignificant can, under extraordinary conditions, redefine a life. Tonight, before you dismiss the change in your pocket, pause. Before you roll up those pennies for the bank, look closer. Before you assume that wealth requires complicated investments, consider the quiet power of tangible assets you may already own. Somewhere in America, a 1975 D Lincoln cent exists that justifies a valuation of $2.8 million. The only question that matters now is simple. Could it be yours? Before you dismiss it, let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually looked at your change? The 1978 Lincoln cent with no mint mark was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. In that era, Philadelphia did not use a mint mark on cents, so the absence of a mark is completely normal. Billions were produced. Yes, billions. Which means the vast majority of these coins are worth exactly 1 cent. Maybe 2. Maybe 3 in excellent condition. That's the reality most people don't want to hear. And yet, here's where the story becomes interesting. Because in the world of coin collecting, it's never just about the date. It's about condition. It's about rarity within condition. It's about errors. It's about microscopic differences that the untrained eye would never notice. The difference between pocket change and a 5-figure collectible often comes down to details. Smaller than a grain of sand. Let's address the elephant in the room. You may have heard claims that a 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is worth $2.4 million. That number is circulating online in clickbait headlines and dramatic thumbnails. But here's the truth. There is no verified record of a standard 1978 Lincoln cent selling anywhere near that figure. Not even close. The highest auction results for pristine examples in top mint state grades have reached into the hundreds or occasionally low thousands of dollars, not Millions. So why do these million-dollar stories spread like wildfire? Because hope spreads faster than facts, but stay with me, because this is where opportunity begins. The 1978 Lincoln set was struck in copper, composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc. That changed in 1982 when the mint shifted to copper-plated zinc. So every 1978 cent has intrinsic metal appeal that later pennies simply don't. Even in circulated condition, copper cents carry a quiet historical weight. They belong to a different monetary era before inflation hollowed out the value of small change. Now imagine this scenario. You find a 1978 penny in absolutely flawless condition. No scratches, no dullness, no contact marks from other coins banging against it in mint bags. Brilliant red luster that looks like it was struck yesterday. That coin, rated at the highest possible levels by professional grading services, becomes extremely scarce. Not because the date is rare, but because perfection is rare. Here's a quick mental reset for you. Think about how many hands a penny passes through in its lifetime. Hundreds, thousands? Now think about how hard it is for one of those coins to survive nearly 50 years without a single flaw. That's where the premium lives, but we're not done. There's another category that can transform an ordinary 1978 penny into something far more valuable. Mint errors, off-center strikes, double dies, broad strikes, clipped plankets, striking anomalies that occurred during production. These are accidents, but in the collector's market, accidents can mean opportunity. For example, a dramatic off-center strike where Lincoln's portrait is shifted noticeably to one side can command significant premiums depending on the severity and eye appeal. A strong double die, where letters appear distinctly duplicated due to a misaligned die during production, can also bring attention from serious collectors. These are not everyday finds, but they do exist. So here's the urgent question. How do you know if the 1978 penny in your possession is special? First, examine the condition. Is it red, bright, and glossy? Or is it brown and worn? Most circulated coins are brown from oxidation. Uncirculated coins retain a reddish tone. Collectors use terms like rhode for red, RB for red-brown, and BN for brown. The color alone can dramatically affect value. Second, use magnification. A simple 10x loop can reveal doubled lettering or unusual features invisible to the naked eye. Look closely at the words Liberty and In God We Trust. Check the date. Subtle doubling can sometimes be found there. Third, weigh the coin. A 1978 cent should weigh approximately 3.11 grams. If it's significantly off, that could indicate an error, though major weight anomalies are rare. Now let's pause for a second. Picture this. You've just discovered what appears to be a flawless 1978 penny. Your heart starts racing. You imagine headlines. You imagine life-changing numbers. Maybe even that to point for $1 million dream. It's exciting, isn't it? But here's the disciplined move. And this is what separates hopeful dreamers from strategic sellers. You verify. You submit the coin to a reputable grading service. You don't rely on online rumors. You don't trust anonymous comments. You get professional authentication. Because in the coin market, credibility is currency. And let's talk about market reality. High-grade Lincoln cents from the 1970s can sell for hundreds or even a few $1,000s if they achieve the very highest certified grades like MS67 or MS68. But those grades are extraordinarily difficult to obtain. The difference between MS66 and MS67 can mean hundreds of dollars. The difference between MS67 and MS68 can mean thousands. It's a razor-thin margin. Here's a quick humorous truth to reset your attention. If every 1978 penny were worth millions, we'd all be retired by now, sipping something expensive on a beach instead of checking under couch cushions. The reason they're not worth millions is simple economics. Supply and demand. Billions minted. Millions still exist. Scarcity drives value, not wishful thinking. Don't let that discourage you, because wealth in coin collecting doesn't come from chasing myths. It comes from knowledge, from patience, from understanding grading standards, from recognizing genuine rarity when it appears. Some collectors build serious portfolios focusing on high-grade modern coins. Others specialize in error coins. Some search bank rolls methodically, hunting for overlooked gems. The point is this: opportunity exists. It rewards discipline. And here's something many people overlook. The 1978 Lincoln cent is part of a broader historical narrative. It belongs to the long-running Lincoln cent series that began in 1909. A series that includes key dates, rare varieties, and legendary auction records. While 1978 itself is not a key rarity, it connects to a lineage that has produced coins worth 6 and 7 figures, such as the famous 1943 copper cent or the 1909S VDB. That's where perspective matters. Sometimes the coin in your hand isn't the jackpot. It's the gateway, the beginning of awareness, the spark that leads you to learn which dates truly carry rarity, which varieties command premiums, which conditions are worth pursuing. So here's the cliffhanger that matters most. What if the real fortune isn't in the 1978 penny itself, but in the knowledge you gain while searching for it? Because once you understand grading, minting processes, and market dynamics, you'll never look at loose change the same way again. Let's bring this back to action. If you're holding 1978 pennies, sort them carefully. Separate the brightest red examples. Examine them under magnification. Look for strong strikes, sharp details in Lincoln's hair, crisp lettering. Consider professional grading only if the coin truly appears exceptional dot, and if it's not, that's okay. You've lost nothing but a few minutes and gained experience. The desire to turn old coins into wealth is powerful. It taps into something deeply human, the idea that hidden treasure could be sitting unnoticed in everyday life. That possibility keeps collectors searching, checking, learning. But lasting wealth, the kind that supports a comfortable lifestyle, is rarely built on viral claims. It's built on informed decisions. So tonight, when you empty your pockets or open that old jar, don't just look for a miracle. Look for quality. Look for rarity. Look for truth. Because the 1978 no-mintmark Lincoln penny is not a guarantee to point for $1 million windfall. It's something more realistic and, in its own way, more valuable. It's a reminder that knowledge separates speculation from strategy. And the next coin you examine, that might be the one that truly matters. Keep searching. Keep learning. And above all, let facts, not fantasies, guide your path to wealth. It sounds impossible, almost absurd. After all, it's just a penny, small, copper, ordinary, kind most people drop into jars, leave in cup holders, or ignore on the sidewalk. But what if I told you that a 1979 no-mintmark Lincoln 1-cent coin has been valued at up to $0.1 million under the right conditions? And that examples of rare transitional errors and extraordinary mint anomalies from that year have stunned even seasoned collectors? Before you dismiss it, ask yourself one question. When was the last time you actually examined the pennies in your home? In 1979, the United States Mint in Denver struck billions of Lincoln cents. America was dealing with inflation. Gas lines were still a recent memory. and the penny remained a symbol of everyday commerce. On the surface, the 1979D looks completely ordinary. On the obverse, the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial. Nothing flashy, no commemorative design, no special celebration, just business as usual. And that is precisely why most people overlook it. The majority of 1979D pennies are worth face value, maybe a few cents in circulated condition. Even in pristine mint state, many sell for modest premiums. So, how could one be worth $2.1 million? The answer lies in the hidden world of minting errors, transitional plankets, and microscopic details that separate pocket change from generational wealth. Here's where the story begins to shift. During the late 1970s and early 1980s, the United States Mint experimented with different metallic compositions. Rising copper prices were putting pressure on production costs. Eventually, in 1982, the Mint officially transitioned from a mostly copper composition to a zinc-based core. But transitions in large-scale manufacturing are rarely neat and tidy. Mistakes happen. Experimental plankets circulate. Dies are reused. And sometimes, coins are struck on the wrong metal blanks. Now imagine this. A small number of 1979D Lincoln cents struck on an incorrect planket. Or a coin struck with a dramatic double-die error so sharp that every letter appears to vibrate. Or a mint-state specimen so flawless, so perfectly preserved, that it achieves a population of 1 at the highest grading tier. Collectors call these coins unicorns, and when rarity meets condition, price becomes explosive. A verified transitional error or extraordinary mint anomaly from 1979D, authenticated and graded at the highest levels, can command staggering sums at auction. In elite numismatic circles, coins are not just currency, they are artifacts. History frozen in metal. And when something unique surfaces, the bidding war becomes emotional. To collectors. One coin, pride, legacy, status. The hammer falls. 7 figures. Now pause for a moment, because this is where fear enters the room. How many people have unknowingly spent a rare penny on coffee? How many have poured jars of change into counting machines without ever checking for weight differences, doubling off metal strikes, or die varieties? It happens every day. You see, a standard 1979D Lincoln cent weighs approximately 3.11 grams, composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc. But if a coin from that year were struck on the wrong planket, its weight could differ noticeably. Even a fraction of a gram matters. A serious collector notices. A grading service notices. And when authenticated, the market notices. Weight alone isn't the full story. Let's talk about doubling. In the minting process, if a die receives multiple impressions slightly misaligned, the result is a double die coin. Not machine doubling, which is common and relatively minor. True hub doubling, the kind where the date, the word liberty, or in God we trust appears clearly doubled under magnification. Imagine examining your 1979D penny under a loupe and seeing bold separation in the lettering. Your heart would probably skip. You'd think it was your imagination. You'd tilt the coin, look again, and then that realization begins creeping in. This might not be ordinary. But here's the pattern interrupt. If you're checking your pennies right now and your spouse walks in, you may want to calmly explain that you're not losing your mind. You're potentially gaining $2 million. Humor aside, the key to unlocking value lies in verification. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC authenticate coins, assign grades on a scale from 1 to 70, and encapsulate them in tamper-evident holders. A coin graded MS-67 is impressive. 1000s to 68 is rare. 1069 is nearly perfect. And at the absolute peak, population reports may show only one or two examples at that level. Scarcity within scarcity, combine a rare mint error with an ultra-high grade, and you create a perfect storm of desirability. The coin becomes more than metal. It becomes a trophy. Now let's step into the emotional core of this story. Many Americans between the ages of 30 and 65 grew up with penny jars in the kitchen, coffee cans filled with loose change, rolls tucked away in drawers, inheritances from parents or grandparents who never threw anything away. Those jars are often seen as trivial savings, a few $100s at most. What if inside that jar is the coin that changes everything? Picture this. You send a suspicious 1979 penny for grading. Weeks pass. The anticipation builds. You check tracking updates obsessively. Finally, the email arrives. The grade is higher than expected. The attribution confirms a rare mint anomaly. Suddenly, auction houses are contacting you. You're no longer watching rare coin sales on YouTube. You are the headline. But here's the cliffhanger. Not every unusual coin is genuine. Counterfeits exist. Altered mint marks exist. Polished surfaces can destroy value. Cleaning a coin improperly can reduce a six-figure piece to a fraction of its potential. This is where urgency matters. If you believe you have a high grade or unusual 1979 Lincoln cent, do not clean it. Do not polish it. Do not attempt home restoration. Leave it exactly as it is and seek professional evaluation, because condition is everything. A flawless original red surface can multiply value dramatically compared to a circulated brown example. Luster, strike sharpness, eye appeal, and surface preservation all feed into the final grade. And in the rarefied air of million-dollar coins, even microscopic imperfections matter. Let's address the $2.1 million valuation directly. Such a price would not apply to a common circulated 1979 penny. It would represent an extraordinary specimen, likely a unique mint error or transitional piece, authenticated, graded at an elite level, and sold in a competitive auction environment, where two or more determined buyers drive the price beyond expectations. Auctions are emotional theaters. Bidders aren't just buying metal. They're buying exclusivity, bragging rights, a piece of history no one else can own. And that's where excitement returns. Because while only a tiny fraction of 1979 pennies qualify for that category, billions were produced, which means examples are still out there, in attics, in storage boxes, in inherited collections, in bank rolls that haven't been opened in decades. The odds are slim, but they are not zero. And fortune has always favored those who look. Think about the alternative. You ignore the jar. You assume it's nothing. Years pass. The coins get cashed in at face value. And somewhere down the line, you learn that a rare variety from your exact year and mint mark sold for 7 figures. That regret would sting. So here's the shift from possibility to action. Start by separating your 1979 pennies. Identify the Denver mint mark beneath the date. Use a precise digital scale. Examine the coin under magnification. Look for sharp doubling, unusual coloration, off-center strikes, or any feature that feels different from the rest. Educate yourself. Compare verified examples from reputable auction archives. Understand the difference between hype and authentication, because knowledge is leverage. And leverage turns curiosity into confidence. The story of the 1979 Lincoln cent is not just about one coin. It's about awareness. about recognizing that extraordinary value can hide in ordinary places, about refusing to underestimate the small things. A single penny weighs just over 3 grams, yet under the right circumstances, it can carry the weight of financial transformation. Imagine paying off debt, funding retirement, traveling without worry, investing in property, creating generational stability, all from something that once sat unnoticed in a jar. It sounds cinematic, but history is filled with similar discoveries. Rare coins found in circulation, estate collections revealing forgotten treasures, ordinary individuals stepping into unexpected wealth because they took the time to look closer. So here's the final question, Dot. If the next penny you pick up feels slightly heavier, or its lettering looks just a bit sharper, will you toss it aside, or will you pause? Because sometimes the difference between pocket change and $2.1 million is not luck. It's attention, and somewhere in America tonight, a 1979 Lincoln 1-cent coin is waiting to be recognized for what it truly is. The only question is whether it's already in your possession, and whether you're willing to look closely enough to find out. The United States Mint was operating at full speed. Billions of Lincoln cents were struck that year. The country was emerging from recession. Cash was still king. Every transaction, every soda machine, every grocery store register depended on that humble 1-cent coin. In Denver alone, over 4 billion pennies were minted. That's not rare. That's ordinary. And yet, in the world of coin collecting, rarity is not born from quantity alone. It is born from error, from anomaly, from the unexpected twist in metal that transforms common currency into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. The 1991 Lincoln set features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial stands in quiet symmetry. To the casual eye, there is nothing extraordinary here. But to the trained collector, subtle differences can mean everything. Because in 1991, during high-volume production, small mistakes occurred, mistakes that slipped past inspectors and into circulation. And that's where the story turns. Among the billions of 1991 cents struck, a tiny fraction exhibit dramatic minting anomalies, major off-center strikes, double dies, wrong blanket strikes, and pristine, virtually flawless examples graded at the highest possible levels. In the rarefied air of professional grading, a coin graded MS-70 is perfection embodied. No post-mint damage, no contact marks, no imperfections visible even under magnification. Imagine that perfection surviving decades of circulation. Now imagine that perfection combined with a dramatic mint error, because when rarity meets condition, value can skyrocket. The coin market has proven something time and time again. Collectors will pay extraordinary sums for extraordinary coins. We've seen it with the 1943 bronze cent. We've seen it with double die errors from 1955. And when a modern coin surfaces that combines condition rarity, mint error, and certified authenticity, the numbers can defy logic. Could a 1991 Lincoln cent truly command $1.9 million? Under standard conditions, no. But under extraordinary conditions, unique error, authenticated, graded at the pinnacle of preservation, and entering a competitive auction environment, valuation becomes a different conversation, because auctions are not driven by face value. They are driven by desire, by ego, by the fear of missing out. And fear is powerful. Imagine discovering a 1991 penny in your possession. You almost toss it aside. It looks ordinary, but something catches your eye. The strike seems slightly off, the lettering unusually bold, the surface shockingly pristine. You send it to a grading service. Weeks pass. Your heart races as the package returns. The label reads MS69, or perhaps higher. Or perhaps it identifies a rare double die variety confirmed by specialists. Now imagine two wealthy collectors locked in bidding competition. Neither wants to lose. The hammer falls. The room gasps. Headlines follow. That is how modern coins rewrite expectations. Let's slow down, because excitement without knowledge can be dangerous. The majority of 1991D pennies are worth face value. Some are worth a few cents. Even uncirculated rolls might fetch modest premiums. So what separates a $1 million possibility from pocket change? 3 elements: condition, error, and authentication. Condition means the coin must be virtually untouched by circulation. That means sharp details in Lincoln's hair, crisp steps on the memorial, no discoloration, no scratches, no dulling of luster. The original mint sheen should radiate under light like a mirror of copper fire. Error means something went wrong during the minting process. It could be a double die obverse where letters appear slightly doubled. It could be a dramatic off-center strike where part of the design is missing, but the date remains visible. It could be struck on the wrong plankette, creating a color or weight anomaly. These are not common. They are the outliers that survived inspection. Authentication means professional verification. Without it, value remains speculation. With it, value becomes tangible. Now here's the question that should make you pause. Was the last time you actually examined your pennies? Most people never do. They assume modern coins can't be valuable. They assume rarity belongs to the 1800s. That assumption costs people fortunes. Because here's the truth. Modern coins are often overlooked, and overlooked coins create opportunity. The 1991D Lincoln cent exists in a fascinating intersection in coin history. By 1991, cents were copper-plated zinc, introduced in 1980 to reduce costs. That means they are lighter than earlier copper cents. But zinc cores also make high-grade survivors harder to find. They are prone to spotting, corrosion, and minor imperfections. A flawless specimen becomes exponentially rarer over time. Think about that. Billions minted. But how many remain untouched? How many were immediately thrown into circulation, scraped against other coins, dropped on concrete, stored in humid basements? Scarcity is not always about how many were made. It's about how many survived perfectly, and survival creates value. Picture yourself holding a roll of 1991D pennies. The copper gleams under the light. You begin examining each coin carefully. The anticipation builds. Your pulse quickens. Could one of these be different? Could one possess that microscopic doubling collectors hunt for? Could one be the coin that changes your financial trajectory? It sounds dramatic, but history rewards those who pay attention. Let's address the elephant in the room. $1.9 million is not a casual valuation. It represents life-changing money. Debt erased, retirement accelerated, freedom purchased dots. So why would anyone pay that for a penny? Because high-end collectors do not collect metal. They collect stories. They collect uniqueness. They collect the thrill of owning something no one else can. And if a 1991D penny surfaced, that was the finest known example with a spectacular mint anomaly, never before documented. That coin would not just be currency. It would be an event. Events command headlines. Headlines command bidders. Bidders command price escalation. But before excitement blinds reason. Understand this, the window of opportunity closes quickly. Once a major discovery becomes public, competition intensifies. More people search. More coins are submitted. The odds narrow, which brings us to urgency. If you have jars of pennies stored away, Inherited collections, old bank rolls from the early 1990s. Now is the time to examine them. Not next year, not someday. Coins deteriorate. Opportunities vanish. And here's a brief reality check with a touch of humor if you're using a 1991D penny to prop up a wobbly table leg. You might want to reconsider that life choice, because condition matters, handling matters, storage matters. Should you find a promising specimen, never clean it. Cleaning destroys value instantly. Even wiping it with a cloth can reduce potential by thousands. Place it in a protective holder. Consult reputable grading services. Let professionals evaluate. Now imagine the narrative arc. You begin skeptical. You investigate. You discover something unusual. Experts confirm authenticity. Auction houses take interest. Bidders compete. The final number shocks even seasoned analysts. That journey from ordinary pocket change to extraordinary asset is why people search. But here's the cliffhanger. What if the most valuable 1991D penny hasn't been discovered yet? What if it's still circulating, unnoticed, waiting for the right eyes? Every day, millions of transactions occur across America. Pennies exchange hands at gas stations, diners, hardware stores. Among them could be a coin that, under magnification, reveals doubling so sharp it becomes unmistakable, or a pristine survivor preserved in a bank roll untouched for decades. The possibility alone fuels the hunt, and the hunt fuels the market. Psychology is simple. When people believe something extraordinary might exist within the ordinary, they begin looking closer. And when enough people look closer, discoveries happen for those between 30 and 65. Balancing careers, families, responsibilities. The idea that financial breakthrough could hide in spare change feels almost poetic. But poetry has powered markets before. Coins are tangible. They are not digital speculation. They are metal struck by authority, carrying history in their design. The 1991D Lincoln set may be modern, but modern does not mean meaningless. It means accessible. Accessible means opportunity. Opportunity means action. As you finish listening, you have the choices. Dismiss this as fantasy or open that jar tonight. Examine those rolls. Look at every 1991D penny with intention. Check for sharpness. Check for doubling. Check for unusual weight or alignment. Because while most will be worth 1 cent, it only takes one exception to rewrite your story. And if somewhere out there, in a forgotten drawer or inherited collection, rests a 1991D Lincoln cent of unparalleled condition and extraordinary mint anomaly, the next chapter of numismatic history hasn't been written yet. The question is not whether such a coin could command $1.9 million. Under the right circumstances, the real question is, will you be the one who finds it?